This is section 9.3. This is part 4. I'm going to solve this using the quadratic formula. I need a 0, and I want my first number to be positive, so I'm going to subtract 12x from both sides. That gives me 7x squared minus 12x. Now, since I don't have a constant in here, I'm going to put in a plus 0, and that equals 0. Now, this is also one that's easily solved using factoring. I could, imagine not having that 0 there. I could factor out an x, and then I could set each part equal to 0 and solve it. But using the quadratic formula, our a is 7, our b is negative 12, and our c is 0. So, x equals negative b, so negative 12, that's positive 12, plus or minus the square root of b squared, so that is negative 12 in parentheses squared, minus 4 times a times c, 4 times 7 times 0, and this will all be over 2 times a, which is 7. Okay, so let's look at what we have. This is going to be 12 plus or minus the square root of negative 12 in parentheses squared is 144. And 4 times 7 times 0, that's just a 0. Okay, and this will be over 14. Now, 144 is a positive perfect square. So I have a perfect square, and that's my discriminant. I expect 2 rational solutions. I should expect my square roots to go away, and I should expect to get 2 different solutions. Okay, so the square root of 144 is 12 over 14. So now we need to, because we can actually do this arithmetic, we split it up. I have x equal to 12 minus 12 over 14, and I have x equal to 12 plus 12 over 14. Okay, so 12 minus 12 is 0. 0 over 14 would be 0. So one of my solutions is 0. You can imagine plugging in a 0 here and a 0 here, and you could see that after you do the arithmetic, you're going to get 0 equals 0, which is true. So that's one of our solutions. Here, 12 plus 12 is 24. I have 24 over 14, which reduces, divide both of these by 2, and you get 12 over 7. So our 2 solutions are 0 and 12 sevenths. There's still a fraction, it's a rational answer, but there's no radical left. So I did get 2 rational solutions. Okay, so let's look at this one. Z squared minus 96 equals 0. Now, at first, this looks like it might be a difference of squares, and you might think, I'm going to see if I can factor this. But 96 is not a perfect square, so that's not going to work for us. This is not factorable. This is not something we would have been able to work using the other methods. Let's talk about what we have. We definitely have a missing term. We're missing our z. So just like when we were doing long division, I'm going to plug in the point 0 plus 0 z. Okay, so now I have z squared plus 0z minus 96 equals 0. So our a is 1, our b is 0, and our c is negative 96. Okay, so using the quadratic formula, our z is equal to negative b. The opposite of 0 is just 0. You don't even really have to write that down, but I'm going to put it in so you can see what's going on. 0 plus or minus the square root of b squared, so that's 0 squared, minus 4 times a times c, times a is 1, times c is negative 96. This is all over 2 times a So 2 times 1. Okay, so let's see what we've got in here. 0 plus or minus, I don't need the 0 there, it's just plus or minus the square root of, what do I have inside? Well, that's a 0. So I have negative 4 times 1 times negative 96. Negative 4 times negative 96 is positive 384. And this is over 2. Well, 384 is a positive number that is not a perfect square. Positive number, not a square. So I expect 2 irrational solutions. I should expect to still have a square root in here. Well, I have the square root of 384. I need to see if this will simplify. I do not have 384 on here. So let's find a prime factorization of this. If I take 384 and I divide it by 2, I get 192. And then divide that by 2 again, and I get 96, which is also divisible by 2 to get 48. 2 again, 24. And then 2 for 12, 2 for 6, and then a 2 and a 3. So the square root of 384 is going to equal, that's one pair of 2's, another pair of 2's, and another pair of 2's. 2 times 2 times 2 is 8. And then I have 2 times 3 left over, square root of 6. So I have 8 times the square root of 6. Okay, so this is plus or minus 8 times the square root of 6 over 2. Okay, so I have 2 solutions, one the positive and one the negative. But I'm still not done here. My radical is simplified, but my fraction is not. Now, one thing you need to remember, and this can be tricky, we cannot reduce the 6 and the 2. This is not 6. This is the square root of 6, which is 2 point something. Let's see if I can find out what it is real quick. The square root of 6 is 2.449, and so on. So you've got to remember that's not really a 6, so we can't reduce that. But the 8 and the 2, we can. If I divide this by 2, I get a 1. Divide this by 2, and I get a 4. So my 2 answers, I have positive 4 times the square root of 6, and I have negative 4 times the square root of 6. So your 2 answers should be written as a set. It does not matter whether you put the minus or the plus first. It's my own personal habit to put the minus first, but there's no good reason to do it that way.